Well, our design team in Kentucky in the US are reaching the end of their design. They want to present to the client, and they want to get a little more pizzazz, if you like, in the finished product. What they've done, let me go back into the model, what they've done is put a polyline, a flexible polyline with a curve fit around the outside, and they've given it a fill and added some transparency, and then positioned the now polyline fill above the design, and they're trying to give it the effect of a wash. So if we go back there, you can see the effect of the wash. I would argue that that's a little too heavy and might well interfere when we produce a PDF file of this design, and I'd lighten that one off. So let's select it again. It has a transparency of 100. Let's halve that. Let's make it 50, and then hit escape, unselect all, and we'll come back to that presentation sheet that they're working on. And I think that will print reasonably well. I think that's an improvement. But they're also having trouble with the positioning of the extra floating viewport that gives you the plant schedule here, and they're finding it's difficult to select, in part because the filled polyline wash is now on top of the plant schedule floating viewport. So a new viewport has been added, and it's a little bit difficult to select. If I just try clicking, that's rather awkward. So one thing you can do is extend your search area like so. See, I'd put a large box, and now I can move the plant schedule where I want it. So they spotted some area that's not interfered with by the wash, and let's zoom extents, and I'd be very confident now that the plant schedule will print nicely. So as it stands now, we have two floating viewports. Both have their viewport window set to colour white. This is the main one with the design in it. You notice colour 255 or white, so white on a white background won't show, and the same applies to this one. It's also white on a white background. Now if you needed to do any more adjusting to that plant schedule one, just grab it again as we did before, just temporarily move it off to the edge, then you can just double click here and you'll jump to the schedule, and you can maybe bring that in a little, or you can even edit at that stage. So let's display that on the layout one. You can either select a crossing window through here and then choose deactivate, or better still, just double click inside the floating viewport. Now we can select it again and move it back into position, and I think that will print nicely. Let's zoom extents again. So if we double click inside here, that gives you the large space, and the previous exercise with the plant schedule gave us the schedule information. So there would be no problem at all putting half a dozen different floating viewports on one sheet. Let me zoom extents, and the way you add another viewport is just click on the layout tab and slide down here to add viewport. The other thing you may have to watch, although it's been set correctly here, don't forget that you can control visibility within a floating viewport. Let me come back here again. I'll select that floating viewport, which we now know controls the whole design. I'll click viewport layers, and up pops a different layers box than the one that perhaps you're used to, and I've left all layers on. Just say in that you didn't want to present the relatively few dimensions in that particular floating viewport, we can say no, turn those off. Now the dimensions are gone, and select all. So we can tweak what we see in the sheet. The last thing I think that might be useful to show these guys who are just starting out on gCADPlus is that you can set up a construction plan where now let me come back here. I need to go here to plant construction. I need to turn it on. That shows the circle that might be useful for the construction team, and if I come back here, now you can see that we just see a circle with a cross marker, and we've labelled them all, and they are labelled with the species name and the code. So the construction team could take this one on site and use it to implement the design. We said that we could pick the floating viewport. We need to deselect the border, and then we need to come in here and get close to the edge and then say viewport layers. And what we're saying is we don't want any dimension on in here, and we can OK that. So there we are. Notice we have the fancier symbol in the plant schedule, and the construction team can simply work through and use the code. They know the number, they have to go to the stock, get 3 Bachelor Nigra, and you know BEN, they're going to be in this little area through here. If they wanted the fancier symbol, it would be a very simple matter to come back in here, select the floating viewport, which can sometimes be a bit tricky. Again, deselect that one. I was holding my caps lock down rather than the shift key. We've deselected that, come into layers, and because we've been consistent with our naming conventions, we could say we'll have the plant symbol layer on in this sheet now. Now in theory, your construction team would be able to locate and place these very easily, and I now wonder whether there's any value, having done that, I don't think there'd be any value at all in having the construction layer on in this example. So I've perhaps taken you on a little bit of a wild goose chase, but I think you can see clearly that we can ring the changes, and we might eliminate some of the other construction elements in here and print that one as well. So I hope that helps with a number of little presentation issues. You could, I think, as I now look at it, this area, this whole block is just a little bit large and dominates. So it's just a symbol. It's a scale of 1. I think we could put 0.75 in there and 0.75 again, and that just lowers the size or reduces the size, and we can just move it across into that corner and zoom extents. So now I think we're in a position to print a PDF and just test that we can read the position of our layout, and we now know that we would prefer that one to be down in this area here, and we would now suggest that we move this sheet up like so. and I'm relatively happy that you could perhaps move it just a little more for the final result. So I'm going to actually do that and then print the PDF file. So be with you in a moment. Well, I've now printed the design to a PDF file using gCADPlus's file save as PDF, and the wash runs through quite nicely, I think, and I can read the text easily in the plant schedule. So I'm happy with that. A word of warning though, Microsoft Edge's browser will view your PDF, but with nowhere near the versatility and clarity of the Adobe product Acrobat Reader. I like using shortcuts in Acrobat Reader. Control+ takes me in, and then I can grab hold of the slide bar on the right hand side and one at the bottom as well, so I can move wherever I want easily in that print, just to make sure that we've labelled things correctly and there's enough resolution. So do install and use Adobe's Acrobat Reader rather than rely on the browser in Edge.